What's going on, everyone? Adam here, your host of the Baseball World Today podcast. We have a lot to talk about. You know all the big moves that's happened. Let's go over them. We're going to start with some small stuff, then we'll move on to the big moves of the day. Let's start off with Alex Wood with the Giants. Wood has kind of struggled for the past few years. It feels like he's just going to be a guy to eat some innings for the Giants. Had of nearly a 7 last year. He's been struggling, looking to get on the right path with the Giants is basically all this is. Makes sense for them. They're not looking to do much. Kurt Suzuki has signed with the Angels. I speculated a lot about guys like Wilson or Realmuto signing with the Angels. This will likely effectively close that door. Kurt has been a solid hitting catcher, about league average over the last few years, and a plus defender, so this move is a good one for the Angels. They do need to find some other ways to really improve, though, because this doesn't help them out too much. Phillies are showing some serious interest in Freddie Galvis. Last year did not have one of his better years, but it's overall a solid hitting, about a league average hitting, I should say, shortstop with good defense who always is ready to play. Played it back-to-back years with 162 games. Really just a guy to fill the hole, though, and you don't expect a lot of. Phillies also signed Archie Brownlee, so this is their second move to strengthen that pen of theirs, in addition to Jose Alvarado. Archie Brownlee had a pretty poor 19, but really rebounded last year and has been overall a pretty solid reliever for his career. At 1 year, $6 million, I think this is a really good move. So yeah, Phillies, 2 good moves for the bullpen. I think they still need another, though. Quite frankly, we'll see what they do. I'm gonna save this actually for we're gonna save talking about the Mets for after this. We're gonna talk about the Yankees' 2 big moves today, and what I think about them. Because I believe in a vacuum they're both very good, but there's some other stuff we certainly need to talk about. So obviously they signed DJ LeMahieu, 6-year deal, which is kind of surprising. 6 years seems like a lot, but the value is $15 million. You can say, like, look how it might look in 4 years, yeah, but if they win a championship, they won't care as much. However, if they don't in 3 years, as I've been saying, things will look quite ugly with all the free agents and all the big contracts left over. However, in the vacuum, DJ LeMahieu, one of the best hitters in baseball, simply put. Now, we had heard news about the Yankees being interested in some pure shortstops to sign, and that would be a much better defensive fit. We're going to talk about that really quick. Basically, the only reason this is really an issue is because Stanton is forced to play DH. He literally has not played the field at all over the last couple of years because of all the injuries. So because of this, they're forced to have Voit at first instead of DHing, DJ at second instead of first base, and Kluber at short instead of second base. Now, all those moves just make out a huge minus on the defensive end, especially the Kluber at shortstop. He was near the bottom in defensive rankings last year, so you think if you bring in a guy like Simmons, it would really help. That's not what they do here. They must think DJ is an overall bigger net positive. So the defense is probably going to struggle in the infield next year. It helps that they are going to have Gio on the left side. But overall, the defense seems like it could struggle up the middle for sure. Now, I wonder what they might do with Miguel Andujar now, because looking back on it, the perfect thing to do really would have been to trade him right after his rookie season, because he hasn't done anything since. But unfortunately now they're kind of stuck with a guy who, I shouldn't say stuck, but they have a guy who is still very young, that many teams would be willing to take a chance on, but they probably won't offer up a huge amount because of how little he's kind of played over the last few years. The problem is he doesn't really fit into the team because of his lack of defense. They have plenty of guys who can simply hit on the team, and the thing is, even last year he didn't really hit much. So that's also obvious. The last couple of years really, but that's not a lot of games. So obviously, in 18, he was a very solid hitter, 855 OPS. Second to Ohtani, I believe, in the Rookie of the Year voting. The big difference in that, as I've told many people, I think, is the fact that Otani's defensive value is his pitching, which is very good, and Andujar's defensive value was third base, which was quite awful. Anyway, we digress. Andujar has always had a very low walk rate too, which kind of hurts him, but the main issue is of why he's not going to be able to play is the defense. He's played third. He's quite bad at it, unfortunately. He's tried left. That was kind of a disaster as well. So there's no real immediate fit for him anywhere on this team, especially with the lack of a DH, because if you have the DH available, then once in a while he certainly gets to start there, but as currently constructed, no way to do that. So that's going to be something interesting to watch. What do they do? Like I said, many teams would be willing to take a chance on him, I believe, but the problem is no one's going to really want to give up a lot. And if they see he deserves more value, then they might just reach a stalemate. And I believe he'll probably be on the team next year in a bench role, and be looking to just fit in if someone gets injured, because I don't want to say this, but many guys on the Yankees have been injured in the past. Stanton, injury prone for his career. Judge last couple of years, so we'll see if he finds a way to slide in the lineup at some points and see what he does. Now, I originally had planned to talk about how the Yankees still need pitching because realistically this DJ move adds to their strength and that doesn't help their weaknesses. Well, they signed Corey Kluber, and now this is a very interesting move for me because, well, first of all, I was surprised he got $10 million, but I guess that's a different story. This is a very low floor, high ceiling move. That because Kluber's only pitched 20 innings in I believe last 2 or 3 years, which obviously is very little. He's dealt with multiple injuries. The problem is when he was healthy in the past, he was one of the best. The last time he seriously has pitched though was 2018, so we're a couple years removed now. So it's going to be interesting to see. So like I said, a very, very low floor move where it can end up being really terrible, but then again, it's not as bad because it's only a 1-year deal, or a very high ceiling where he's near the Cy Young level that he has been in his career. So the problem is now, if you look at the Yankee team from last year and this year and you compare them, you might take the one from last year right as of right now, because simply put, would you be willing to bank that Kluber is better than Tanaka last year? I'm not sure. How much of a difference will Kluber be from Tanaka? If they've improved, it's very marginally, I think. They've also lost a guy like Canely, so if the Yankees have improved, I would say very marginally, not much of a huge difference. I would say they still need to try and do something with their pitching staff, because I still believe it's right now with Garrett Cole and the rest of them. It's just a bunch of questions after Garrett Cole. First question, Kluber, can he even stay healthy? Another guy, Severino, will he be able to help you at all this year? Will he stay healthy? Jordan Montgomery has been hurt, hasn't been the greatest. Domingo Germán, can he avoid beating up his girlfriend for a whole year? Can he still produce? The first one's really a hard-hitting question, I would say. Devi Garcia certainly has potential, but will he be able to put it in time and seriously be ready to help this team come to playoffs this year? I'm not really sure. He's still very young. So that's why I feel like they kind of still need to make another move for a starter. The problem is how much money is really left at this point, because you sign Kluber and he gets $10 million, and you would probably think, oh, that's not really a big deal because he could be worth it. True. But at the end of the day, that's less money to maybe bring in a Tanaka. So we'll have to see if that closes a book on Tanaka or what. Maybe they still have the money to bring in an Oda Rizzi, someone of that caliber, to just give you innings. But we'll certainly have to see. Right now, the pitching staff is still certainly hurting, I believe, and they need to find some sort of way to bolster it. Otherwise, I believe it could still be the same story as last year and the year before, where they have the offense in place, but they kind of fall. For example, last year they fell a game short. If they have another really good start early on in that series, maybe it doesn't turn out that way. Same in 18. No, not in 18. they lost by 2 games. In 19 or in 17, though, if they have the extra starter, then maybe it makes a big difference. So yeah, few questions with this team. Another question that I actually have, I'm not trying to knock on the Yankees here. It's just I'm trying to look at these moves and their ripple effects more in depth. So Aaron Hicks, they kind of need another bounce back season from. So I talked about him. Now he did have about an 800 OPS, but I feel like at this point 200. I'm not sure what I should say here because he had a 225 average, but nearly 380 on base. So they kind of need a more consistent year, is what I'll say for him, Hicks. So we'll have to see how his arm holds up as well coming off the surgery, because it was almost like a break for him having to play less games throughout this season than he typically would. So what else do I want to say? Another question for me is, are they finally ready to give Clint Frazier all the playing time? Because if not, this is the time I would say now you finally trade him. Now I've been saying that for 3 years because, well, quite frankly, he hasn't gotten a chance to play for 3 years. I was saying they should originally trade him for Cole when that was still a discussion. He ended up going to the Astros. They have to commit to him now or never, I believe, because if they're not going to commit to him otherwise it could be an Andujar situation again. It nearly has been, but the only difference is Clint did have a solid year. So this could be a good time to trade him for a starter. I really doubt they do it though, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but it's good if they don't trade him if they're willing to commit to him. But if I see him on the bench for half the games, then I'm going to be scratching my head as to why they didn't trade him and try and really improve the team. Because as much as I think he has potential to be a good player, that doesn't really help you in a playoff series where you're a starter short and he's sitting on the bench. So in a vacuum, I certainly think these are 2 good moves. The fits, honestly, are not 100% perfect, but DJ would look to be a net positive over like a guy like Simmons, where the defense would be a lot better, but the offense would carry over, I believe. The team, the only difference right now is you have Kluber instead of Tanaka or Paxton. Paxton wasn't much of anything last year, and I guess you could say Severino. So we're not sure how much better this team is going to be, or if it could be worse if Kluber is quite bad. So Kluber's going to be a huge wild card of this season. We'll have to see how that goes. Simply put, we will have to see. Next off, we're going to talk about the Mets. Now, the Mets were reportedly close to signing Brad Hand this morning, but that appears to be not close. They are decently close, but nothing is set in stone, I would say. Kind of unfortunate. I had a full thing talk about how Brad Hand was a perfect fit, how our bullpen was Seth Lugo, Brad Hand, Trevor May, Diaz, Familia, and Dellin on a bounce back would be quite good. They need to try and bring him in, I believe. I think it would be such a perfect fit. If you're going to invest in the pen, you really should. And yeah, I mean, especially since early in the season, Noah Syndergaard might not be able to give you a lot of innings. You might really need to rely on this pen. Another thing is, make sure they keep Seth Lugo in the pen all season, please. He can be a starter, but his effectiveness is just so much more on the pen. I hope everyone knows that. Another quick question I'm going to strike here is, why didn't the White Sox just take Hand when he was worth $10 million for 1 year and then instead sign Liam Hendricks? It's just something that occurred to me. So Liam Hendricks has a 4-year, $54 million deal. That's a little over $10 million a year. I'm a little confused why not just taking Brad Hand on the 1 year, $10 million. And I understand you might think Liam Hendricks is better, but man, the value is certainly so easy right there. I feel like that's just a little confusing to me, but Sherlock, you got a good pitcher, a great pitcher, no matter how you look. So now I have a little bit of a under the rated move here for the Mets. They signed Jose Martinez, one of my favorite underrated players throughout the years. He has always been a great hitter, but it's just when he was with the Cardinals, never really had a spot to play because of the no, not DH. I'm going to say this right now. If there is an NLDH this year, which I believe this is, the Mets are going to take full advantage of it. They're going to have Pete and Dom Smith rotating between first and DH already, and then Jose Martinez would certainly get more playing time at the DH too, because Dom Smith could play has played left field, and there's potential for all three of those guys to just go off and hit like crazy. They all certainly have potential to be middle of the order bats. I think this is a great underrated signing by the Mets. Also, he is a guy you could play in right as well, just not ideal. He could play first, but that definitely won't happen with the Mets, considering they have Pete and Dom there. So I think this is going to be a really good underrated signing for them. Now we got a couple other things to talk about. That's really all the big news for the last couple days, I believe. Now, you've probably seen a lot of arbitration and international signings done today. We're going to talk about why those matter. First of all, let's talk with arbitration. Arbitration, many people just see as something like just give the player the money, not bother talking about it. The problem is a lot of teams, we're going to use the Yankees as an example here. They signed a plethora of players today. And the problem is, if say you just got about $10 million today. Say you give in to what he wants and he gets about $11 million. And then you do the same with Sanchez, give him the extra $1 million, and so on and so on. That's about $5 million less for another pitcher. So, which are $5 million that they could really use right now to possibly bring another guy in. So that's where we got to look at it like that, where teams with tight caps right now can't really just afford to give out all the money as much as they might want to these players. And it's kind of a tough spot because you want to give the guys what they've earned, but you got a service to the team, which is you need to save every mil you got to bring the team a little stronger. They all know they need another starter, so they're trying to try and hold on to every million they got. So a couple of Yankee players might be a little unhappy. I'm just using this as an example, by the way. But it is what it is. If they get to bring another starter because they paid those guys a little less, then I don't think many fans should be complaining. I mean, I understand people will be upset that if people get taken to arbitration because it's just not a good look, but in the long run, it could really help a team out. So, international signings, we've seen a lot of these today. International signings might be one of the most underrated thing in baseball that the average fan doesn't know about. Lots of great players have the potential to be signed. I think a lot of people don't really know about international signings because it's kind of a confusing process. Basically, every team has a set amount of money they can use to sign these players. That's why it gets very difficult. Do you sign a bunch? Do you sign just the top of the gun? So that's why many teams do try to make moves for international money, but these international signings can be just shots in the dark at times, but a lot of them come out very strongly. I know I was hoping the Red Sox could sign a lot of these guys today, as many as possible, and they have luckily, but these international signings I think are one of the more underrated things in the game. Not as many people know about them as they should, and it's understandable because it's kind of a confusing process. Now we're on to our discussion for this pod. We're going to talk about how much does a manager matter in baseball. So I first want you to think, how many managers do you actually know throughout the MLB? It's probably a lot less than you think. Probably a lot less than the ones you know in the NFL or the NBA. That is if you care about those sports. But the probably reason is managers do not matter as much as they used to in the MLB. This is for a few reasons. Number one, defensive alignment. That's all the guys upstairs now. Every player has a book, basically, where they know where to stand for each hitter. That kind of takes away from the manager's job. That's a less responsibility for the manager. You have bullpen and when to take a starter out and when to pinch hit, but managers have more information than ever. And again, a lot of the moves come from upstairs. So I am here believing that the manager's really only job, I shouldn't say only job, but all that the GMs and owners should really care about for a manager is how they handle the clubhouse. I'll give an example here. Many Red Sox fans believe that Rafael Devers wasn't hustling as much with Ron Renicky last year as he was with Cora in 18 and 19. Now we'll see how that turns out this year with Cora back, but if you can, it's all the manager's job really is just getting the most out of their players and keeping the clubhouse. It's not about putting them in the right positions anymore. That's what comes from upstairs. I simply believe the manager's job is just for communication within the players. They have the dirty work, but the guys upstairs have all the moves in the game really sorted out for them at times. Now, obviously, a manager does go away from the stats at times and makes a correct or wrong move, and it gets talked a lot about. But at the end of the day, they have an outlined plan. The manager, there's a reason we don't know a lot of managers anymore, because they're not in the news as much as they just follow what they're told. Not that that's a bad thing. It makes their job a lot easier, and it lets them focus on just keeping the clubhouse and getting more out of those players from not being on the field. So it's an interesting thing to talk about, I believe. I would definitely say in baseball, the manager matters the least. I think, legitimately, I believe anyone could manage a baseball game. Really, anyone could. Not anyone could just go manage a football game, though. You can't just know what plays to run. Same for basketball to some extent. And MLB really, once the lineup is set, most of the guys go out there and play the whole game. You make a few key substitutions that come normally from upstairs. I would have to say the MLB manager's job is the easiest. Let me know what you think on that for sure. But I think we're at a point where I feel like I'm getting repetitive, but they matter less and less throughout the years. I feel like at some point, managers are really just going to be told, have a piece in their ear if they don't already. You just say, all right, it's time to take this guy out. You got to do it now. And that's just going to happen. It probably does happen with some teams already. So I feel like in a manager search, most teams are just looking for a guy to bring the team together. And that's really all I have to say on that. Let's do a quick recap of all the moves from today. Alex Wood is signed with the Giants. Angels with Kurt. Phillies interested in Galvis. Brought in Bradley. DJ has re-signed with the Yankees, 6 years, $90 million. They've also signed Corey Kluber to a 1 year, $10 million. Mets are reportedly close on Brad Hand, but have also brought in Jose Martinez. That's all I've got for everyone today. And also we saw a bunch of arbitration and international signings. That's all we got for today. Hope everyone enjoyed listening. Thank you for listening. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at TheBaseballWOR2. Have a great day, everyone.